This session here is called Epistemologies of the North. Elle Márjá Eira is a Sami indigenous versatile artist and filmmaker. She has a rich portfolio. She writes, she directs, she composes. She produces numerous short films and art films. And just recently, on the 12th of April, a film that she directed called Stolen is available in Netflix. I have watched it, and it creates me sort of rage, but that was me. I invite you to watch it. She's also a reindeer herder, as you have seen from the movie. Now, Morten Hyld Pettersen, he's a musician, a composer, and a producer. He has been collaborating with Elle Márjá for almost 20 years and has contributed to several other projects musically. He's also known for his contributions to film scores, and these live performances, as you have seen, provide audiences with a connection to the emotional power of the film Vold. So then we have Matthias sitting there, who is the technician, without which I think we could not have had this beautiful performance. The next moment here is a conversation that will be moderated by Saskia Vermeylen, that I please ask to come to the stage. Where is Saskia? You are there, okay. And the two artists, and also online we have Vivi Vold. She should appear on screen anytime. Who joins us from Denmark. She's a PhD fellow and part of the work in the upcoming biology program of the University of Greenland, and her research is called Let Us Meet Outside in Silence. So in this, we will continue asking questions to our conversations moderated by Saskia. We want to talk about politics of silencing traditional and indigenous knowledges. We want to talk about how do we work across different modes of knowledge production and how arts are configuring that space. So without further ado, and sorry, I need to introduce Saskia. She's a reader in law and property scholar at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow, Scotland. And her work on indigenous peoples' cultural property is informed by legal anthropology, and she has done multi-site ethnography across 6 different language groups in southern Africa. So without further ado, I just hand the floor to Saskia. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela, and also thank you so much to Elle Márjá and Morten. It's a real, I feel really humbled by what you've shared today with us, and I think I can speak for all of the audience that we all get goosebumps, I think, when we watch the film, and I've seen the film before, so it's a real privilege to see it the second time, but with the live performance, that really takes it to a whole different level. So lots of gratitude for sharing this with us. But I would also like to thank Angela, because I know how difficult it actually is to bring these performances in institutions like this one. And as Angela said, I work as a legal anthropologist, and I'm involved in court cases. And it's these kind of performances that we actually would like to bring in the courts as well. And that's really very difficult. So all the time when I was watching the film, I was like, I wish we could bring these performances into the court with all the land struggles. And as Angela said, I work mostly with in indigenous communities in Southern Africa, mainly Namibia and Botswana. They're known as the San peoples, sometimes also still referred to as Bushmen. And what's really sad is when I watch your film and also when I listen to the music and the emotions you bring into it in the performance, that it so resonates with the struggles I've been witnessing for 20 years in a very different part of the world, but the same kind of struggles that you are facing, and how that relationship with the animals, the land, how important that is, and that's been taken away by extractive industries, by our modern ways of living. So yeah, it's really very moving to see your film, and also these expressions of art and music you bring into it. And again, I think this is something where we as policymakers, lawyers, everybody here in the audience, I think there needs to be a real awareness that in that music, for me, that's the law. I speak as a lawyer here, and again, this is important for us, that we kind of de-learn how we think about policy, the law, and actually start to appreciate that what you've been performing here today, the rituals that you're performing with the earmarks, that's your constitution, that's your law. And it's important that we recognize that, and that we learn from these rituals. So I'm going to ask a few questions, and then we will also open it up to the audience, because I'm sure you all will have lots and lots of questions. And so, what I would like to start with Elle Márjá asking a question about the film, and we already get a good sense why it's so important for you to make the film. But it would be nice for you maybe to expand a little bit about it, what the film means to you, and why you've made this film.
Thank you so much. It's very nice to be here, like I said earlier. Well, first of all, I like to tell stories, and I like to tell stories from my background, where I'm coming from, and also stories related to my family, especially. I'm a reindeer herder myself, and I have my own reindeer. And in 2020, the Tromsø International Film Festival asked me if I could make a movie during the lockdown, while the pandemic was everywhere in the world. And I thought, well, I can't go out and meet other people. So I decided to follow my own family, my father, could see him, and also my brother, because we went through like a huge climate crisis that year. It was the first time we had to feed our animals, which we never has been doing before. So it was very weird, and it was very, I could just like feel while following my family, filming them, like it was so intense situation and so critical situation, and I could just see in my father's eyes it's something serious going on here. And of course we lost a lot of reindeer, and my father was actually hiding it from me. He told me later, yes, we had much reindeer who died because they were starving to death. And that during that winter the snow was, and the weather was very strange. It could like rain in the middle of January, and then suddenly the next day it's like 30 or 40 minus. And when the weather is like that, the ground freezes, and the reindeer cannot get through the ice and find food. And also, but it continued, like it was snowing and snowing, like you could see in the movie. We had snow like during the whole summer, also up in the mountains, a lot of snow. And my father said, like he told me, like he has been working with reindeer in 50 years and never been experiencing that much snow, and so the weather is so strange. And yeah.
Thank you, thanks. No, and I think you're really raising a very important point, and something that has been talked about a lot over the last few days is how climate emergency, how that's so experienced by indigenous peoples all across the world, and how that's like an extra level of complexity and challenges, how culture is further being eroded, and how all on top of all the other struggles, that makes it really very difficult to keep the culture going if weather patterns are changing and that your culture is so dependent on certain weather patterns. So that really brings lots of other challenges. Thank you. Morten, I would also like to ask you a question, and I'm very much interested in my own research into music as well. I analyze healing dances of the healers, and the women are supporting the dancers with singing and clapping. And I would love to hear a bit more about you, that relationship between the music you're composing, your performance here, and how that's also related to your knowledge about the culture, your ways of being. If you can maybe tell a little bit more about that relationship.
Yeah, I think there's that music is just the human's way of expressing what actually Mother Earth is doing. Everything is about frequencies. It's about waves. It's about circles. And music is something that we can use to express it. Not just writing it on the board in a straight line or a circle, but music is like circles. And the circle of life. And it's about what comes from inside of us. That I almost forgot your question, but it's just so natural. From the first day we say, "Mama," we sing, we do these circles, and that's what the cool thing about the films that Elle Márjá make. They are like in circles, and then it's really nice to almost start the same place and go back to the same place. And then it is important for for understanding how Earth is. It's a sphere.
But also we have a lot of yoik, traditional yoiks, and also modern yoiks in our music, and also we also do a lot of field recordings. It's very important for my movies that we capture the moments, like when you hear the reindeer and how the snow is, and snow have different sounds, you know. It depends on how the weather is, and if it is maybe 5- or 30, so the sound does sounds different. So, and I grew up with yoiking, and my family, all of them almost do yoiking, and we have like this huge catalog in our heads. So we just like in the past 20 years have started to record those yoiking and also take care of them. Yeah.
Because yoiking is about remembering people. That's the way to preserve like a 100-year-old yoik. Why is it still here? It's because it's delivered to the next generation, to the next generation, and that's the way to remember, like granddad of Elle Márjá, she knows his yoik. That's made over 100 years ago. So it's something in the circle. I don't want to talk in this my philosophical way. I try to be more like, but that's hard. But you understand. Everybody understands, and everybody feels it. So that's important.
Thank you. No, totally. And I think it's really beautiful, and it kind of it's in a very poetic way answering one of the previous questions around rights of nature and how we're going to represent that, and how you talk about the rhythms of life that you bring in your ancestors, but also your relationship to nature, the animals, these rhythms of nature, how it's all connected in the music. And I think if we do talk about rights of nature and how we're going to represent nature, I think this is an example how we can do that in a very kind of non-Eurocentric kind of way, but more with the emotions of the body, of the voice, of you remembering the landscape. And this is what we need to do, is to bring these processes and resurfacing them.
And yeah, like my movie is also very circulative. You can see that's how our lifestyle is, being a reindeer herder, and we follow like the same paths every year. And like Britt was talking also a little bit about that, about the sacred places. We have some very special places, and we come back every year. And I know my ancestors has been there, so I feel like it's my home. I always say, like, I don't only have one home, I have several homes. It depends where the reindeer are.
And I also, just to come back to what you said, Morten, that we all feel it, and I think that's a really important reflection you're making, that it's something that we need to learn to tap into that as well. And there's a really wonderful piece by Max Richter, Voices, about the UN Declaration of Human Rights. And it's so beautiful. He brings in all these different languages. And so I think, yeah, we do it as well. But unfortunately, I think a lot of European peoples, we have left our traditions behind, and we sort of need to kind of reconnect to them.
And Joik is the oldest folk tradition music in the world, actually.
Yeah.
And I've been met a lot of musicians around the world, and everyone says like, I am so jealous of you. You still have your traditional music, the oral singing and so on. Mm.
You also wanted to say something?
No, that's...
Okay. Okay, good. And I mean, we talked already a little bit upon the importance of indigenous knowledge and ways of being. And there's lots and lots of layers of that knowledge in the film, in the visuals, in the rituals you're showing, but maybe Elle Márjá and also Morten, if you would want to, maybe you can expand a little bit upon that, how you wanted to represent that, and how you wanted to share that knowledge with a wider audience.
Well, as a film director and a filmmaker, it's always kind of very challenging and difficult to make films about ourselves, because the people doesn't have much knowledge about us, the Sami people. So how deep can I go into different themes, you know? How to visualize and how to write the dialogues, and how much can I tell, for example, just about the earmarking, you know? Before it can the film becomes an informational film, which I don't want it to be. So it's always very challenging. And also while I'm writing, also like we have so rich Sami language, for example, the Northern Sami. We have around 300 or 400 words for snow, only snow, which the reindeer herders uses in the daily life when they are talking to each other and when they're meeting each other and just explaining, the weather is and snow is like that, and they know exactly, like they can only mention that one word. They know exactly, okay, how the grazing are right now, for example, for the reindeer. So, but I think it's important, like for me, when we speak about the indigenous knowledge, for me as a Sami filmmaker, to like give my perspective of things to an audience, and also, and we have on different perspectives, of course, and it is very important that I get the opportunity and the chance to make my own movies and use my voice with my background and so on. Mm.
Thank you. Morten, do you want to add something to that?
That's perfect.
Okay. I'm going a little bit off script here, if you don't mind, because I'm just listening to you. I'm also, in terms of how to represent the Sami culture, the knowledge, something that I've noticed a lot in working with lots of different indigenous communities, how difficult it actually is how to represent it, because a lot of people will have a preconceived idea what Sami people look like and how they're supposed to look like. And when I do, for example, field work in the Kalahari Desert, some tourists still think that the San peoples are still wearing a loincloth, and often I had tourists coming up to me and say, "How dare you to clothe them?" So I think it's something really very difficult and also very brave to bring your voice into it and show the culture.
It can cost a lot also to use your voice if you, yeah.
Yeah, no, these are very, very, very complex processes to how to represent a culture, and where you want to sort of present the past, the ancestors, but a culture is always evolving as well, and to bring that balance is not easy. I don't know if you want to say something more about that, or.
Yeah, I feel like I don't make like movies because I want to represent my culture. I'm telling a story, and I do also fictional, but also non-fictional movies. And like this one is a documentary. And previous, I have been making also very confrontal films, short films, because if we can talk about the land, for example, how important the land is for the Sami reindeer herders. And my family and also other families has been in a court case for 7-8 years ago against the Norwegian state, the Statnett, who owns the power lines. And because of that, we had to go to the court and defend our lands. And I did that during that time. I was following my family and documenting everything what was happening. And after when I had the premiere, it was very risky for me because that film for someone wasn't so popular. And also I felt like a little bit scared at that time also. Some people started to write messages to me, which not nice. So, but I was just feeling I was telling my truth about my daily life, about my family, about our reindeer. Someone has to hear those stories too, because often you do not find that much information on the internet, and the media doesn't write so much about those cases, especially like the national media, and the international also. So it can be very risky to tell those stories sometimes.
Yes, even more gratitude for doing that. And this leads really nicely to another question, which is again something that has been a theme that runs throughout the events. And maybe I could also already open that question to Vivi, because art is obviously a really important way of telling your story. And I just would like to open the question to all three of you, how art helps you to bring that message, to tell maybe these difficult stories, and how art can be a sort of medium that allows you to tell your story how you like to tell it. Maybe Vivi, you would like to take that question first?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I didn't even, the sound was like off in the start, so I'm very, very sorry that I could not enjoy your amazing performance, and even the sound of the film, I couldn't hear that, but I watched the most of it. Yeah, I'm Vivi. I'm a Ninook from Greenland. Good afternoon. And I was born in Nuuk, and I was raised in South Greenland. Thank you for the question. I agree on. So one thing I in a way that we understand what is art. What is art, and why do we call it art? And for me, it's just a way of expressing what I know, what I can see. So for me, it's not something that is extraordinary, or it's, for me, it's a way of just showing what I know, and trying to show that with ways that is, because words limit, it's so limited, just trying to express that with written or just words. So it's a way of understanding that our knowledge and our way of understanding our world is so much more than just words. So for me, that's the case for that.
Thank you, Vivi.
Thank you. I can send you the link of my movie if you want to watch it.
I would love to. Thank you.
I agree. For me, it's also art feelings, and like when you like reach to people's heart and to their feelings, then I'm very happy when I screen my movies, for example, or when I do music. So, and then also you can reach with like films and music to a lot of people in a very short time, which is amazing also.
Morten, you want to add something to that? No? Okay, thank you. Thanks. So Vivi, really thanks for joining us. And it may be nice that, because you're also a filmmaker, and it may be nice for the audience that you could maybe tell a little bit more about your own film making practice, if you don't mind, maybe just sharing a little bit about your own work.
Yes, thank you. It's funny that I don't really see myself as a filmmaker or artist or whatever, but I know that's what I do. And again, it's a way of trying to express what I really cannot express in another way. And it's deeper. Also, I agree on Elle Márjá. It's just, for me, it's deeper than just words, because words is so, and I also said that it's so unfortunate I couldn't hear the audio, because sound is so important. It's the sound is everything. That's why my project and the film I made, the sound is one of the most important part of the film, because it gets you deeper in the body and not only the head, and in your soul. So for me, that's the most important part of making the film, is showing what I see and sense, and trying to show, and then again, not to only represent all my people, that's not my intention at all. It's just telling what I see. And I also know that many of the people from my community express, they're not maybe the same exactly, but similarities of challenges that we have in our systems, and not acknowledging our ways of knowing, of ways of understanding our world. So it's a way of this contemporary, what I see with the person that I am in the community that I come from as an Indigenous woman. So
thank you. One of the other topics we talked previously in the morning, and maybe also in the other days, and it's a theme that is really very important, and that was highlighted in the earlier sessions, is this notion of care, and how important that is if we work with Indigenous knowledge systems, and also in terms of the processes, what we talked about earlier this morning in the panel, about how to do respectful research and how you need to bring care in these relationships. And Vivi, I was hoping that maybe you could tell us a little bit more about how you sort of interpret care, and how you make that relationship between care and Indigenous knowledge. If you could maybe expand a little bit on that.
Yes, thank you for the question. I think it's a very complex question when you look at it in a Western way of knowing, because it's the structures that we need to look at, that need, we need to like explain why we need care in a system. I mean, it's human to have love. It's human to have connection. When we have connection, relationality with, the land, and we call, the weather and Sida. Sida is our consciousness, the way we think or act, not only up in the head, but our whole system. We also are, the Sida outside is also connected to that. So it's very much connected to what you just showed, what I could sense of the film I just saw, with our relationality. When we are so disconnected in a society like Western ways of doing, that we need to say that we have to have care, you know, while as I know, as Inuit knowledge or indigenous knowledge, not to say in general, but what I have encountered is care is an embedded way of doing things. And we call it like reciprocity. Like when we do things, we don't only take, we also give back. It's just something natural. So the care is a value that is totally embedded in the way that we do. But in a Western ways of doing, or the structures that the Western requires of us, is so much lack of a connection that it doesn't require care, you know, and that's a huge problem. And that's why we have so many cases of not listening to our ways, and seeing that as a not as a strength actually, but as a weakening, or not strong enough, or not being able to push back, you know, while as if you really connect, you don't need that, you know. So I really think it's a complex conversation, but it's a very much important conversation that we need to have, and see the differences between the Western way of doing things in the contrast of many indigenous ways of knowing and being.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think you really highlight a very important point, and I think it was mentioned this morning as well that it's not just about these different knowledges, but that we also need to respect another ways of being in the world. And I think all three of you are making that point, that how important that is, that we are respectful of each other's ways of being in this world, and how that is different. And I can definitely speak on behalf, I think, of many Western, well, I speak on behalf of lawyers, but I think that can also be extended to scientists. That is a very long journey for us first of all, to be aware of that different ways of being, and the way how our education system is being structured is that we're not attuned to it. We first, I always say, we first have to de-learn some of our processes before we can sort of really open our heart and mind to other ways of being. And that's a kind of final question before I open it up to the floor, is thinking about how can we make these links then with policymakers, that relationality, these elements of care, respectful awareness of different ways of being, knowledge, expressed in arts practices in the wider sense. How do we make these connections then with policymaker, in my case, with court cases? Do you have any views? And I open it to all three of you, how we can do that.
Yes, I agree. You know, everything that I think most of us, when we do art, you know, so-called art, is we try to change something in something that is not working for our favor, you know, or no one is listening to or seeing what we see and what experiencing. I can draw the line with or I can come with an example with my work in the upcoming biology program, which it has succeeded in our community in Greenland. The University of Greenland is making this biology program. I'm not a biologist. I'm an expert with, or I know a lot of things in our ways of knowing, our values, our ways of learning. Because when you know our ways of being, you know, the way we are, you know how we learn. You know how to, you know, approach the safe environment. So the way that we did it is really took several years to do research about, but so what is our values? What is our strengths? What is our ways of knowing? What is our system, you know, as indigenous Inuit? So, and really had that strength-based in order for us to really go deep in, so how can we make that in a world that is a real world? You know, we have art and then we go home and then we do art. You know, if you really want to like change something a little bit at a time in the system, like as a university, is to create a space where you just, we were lucky enough to get that space where we actually changed the whole dynamic of how we learn and making those as a, you know, at least we really need to have safe spaces. All of the things that we have talked about, and actually do that in a policy, our internal policy. How do we greet our students? How do they need to feel? And in order for them to feel safe, how do we make that happen? So it's not them that is that has to work a lot to fit in, rather that we have to do a lot of things that to change and make that. Safety is a huge issue here. It's very like being heard, being listened to, and be acknowledged, because our ways of living and our ways of knowing and learning and knowledge has not been acknowledged, like in the system ever. So when we do that, a lot of things, good things happen, and the strength-based is a way of you can, you know, concretely do the policy making in that. But we are fortunate to have a government that listens to what we need and and then explore a little few years to then what is it that we need, and not just to reform, but really like, okay, then how can we make that happen?
Thank you. Elle Márjá, you want to add something to that? Yeah.
I just want to add one thing.
Yeah, please.
What we can do, maybe, start thinking about, is that we will stop thinking of things in a straight line. Life is not a straight line. There's nothing that's a straight line in life. We breathe in, we breathe out. That's a circle. We go out from home, and we come back to home. That's a circle. We have these circles of life. I think that's really natural for everything, every little being of life. Start to think in circles. We are talking about circle economy, and now it's it's not a straight line economy. We want circle. So more like circles.
Yeah, no, that's
circles of life and waves.
Yeah, that's really nice.
Frequencies.
Thank you. Yeah, and one project that I know of in Canada, I think it's McGill University, Glenn Coulthard. Maybe you're familiar with his work. He's a First Nations lawyer, and he actually has set up what he calls a bush university, and they had some experiments with that in Australia as well, where they actually take all legal students to another university where they actually learn contract law by skinning an animal, and really sort of being taught in different ways of understanding law by an embodied practice of skinning an animal, for example. And you can really see how that will really change the thinking of the next generation of lawyers if you've been exposed to practicing law in a very different way. So I do think we actually are making progress in changing our education system. And it's thanks to people like yourself that we can do that. So thank you very much for that. But I would like to open questions to the audience, and I'm sure you will all have lots of questions to this amazing panel. So if anyone would like to ask a question, please raise your hand, and I think somebody will have a microphone. Okay. Shall I?
If nobody wants to.
Yeah, I think you can go ahead.
The question is essentially, it's about reindeer and the ears being cut.
It's always questions about the ears and the slaughtering scene.
You have a ready answer for that. Okay, so The question is, how do we know if reindeer accept having their ears cut? And so, yeah, that's the question, basically.
Hello, Antoine. So to build on that, what is, when you take decisions, what is your relation to the animals you are living with and living from? So what is the way to communicate and to take them into account when you take decisions? Maybe that's to follow up on the question.
Well, my family has been reindeer herders in many, many, many generations for thousands of years, both of my mom and my dad's side. And back in the days, like my grandparents, they used to live with the animals, to sleep with the animals, and they were together all the time. And my father is also like that. He's living with his animals, and he can recognize every of them. And he always says, like, every one of them has kind of a different personalities, and they are different. And they can recognize him also. So they have a very special connection. And the earmark, I have been arvet, vad är det på engelska? Inherited my reindeer mark. It's a mix of my father's and also my mother's earmark. So for me, it is an identity, and I feel like the reindeer is also my family. And it's a huge part of who I am, where I come from, and how I'm living out in the nature, and how do I communicate with the nature. So the thing is, like, when I go, if I don't talk in a philosophy way, but when we cut the ear, it is a very special technique. When they don't bleed in their ears, it means it's not much, maybe they are not hurting, you know. But it's like you have to know how to cut the ears so they don't bleed. So often they don't bleed at all. That's very strange.
You want to add something, Morten, to that? No? Vivi, do you maybe want to reflect upon that within your own culture, the relationships with animals, nature?
Yeah, I mean, our relationship with animals for us is, I'm from the southernmost part of Greenland, and the closest animals that we have is polar bears, and the seal, a red-hooded seal, which is an amazing seal, and everything that we do is always season-based, and and everything that the relations that we have with, like, even the blood, the red blood is, we use everything, even the blood to eat, and we always use that. So the question with that, if that hurts, or if they are, like, everything has a purpose, and we never ever, we never take more than we need. So our ways of doing is actually, in our spiritual understanding, is if you take more than you need, it will have consequences. Obviously, what we are experiencing right now is that we have been in this capitalist world, has, used everything more than we need. So, and we are experiencing those consequences right now. But we have always known that in the stories that we have been told with for us, it's the mother of the sea, which will take all the animals from us if we don't take them with consideration and care and, reciprocity, and never ever take more than the community needs. So it's also have enough for the community, not only for your own small family, So the relationship between, and I think the animals know that. I mean, it's something that we are deeply connected to, and we always use everything. It's like, and we also have reindeer in the up north, and it's always the respect of use everything. Like when we hunt, we take everything for a purpose, for the life that we have, or not only to survive but thrive spiritually. So I think that's in our stories as well.
Yeah, and I am totally agree. Like I tried like to tell in my movie also, like we use everything we get from a reindeer, and we get so much knowledge also from the reindeer. It's about, yeah, you know, I get our traditional clothes, the food, and the yoiking is also very powerful ways of express in the reindeer herding families, and also the traditional handcraft. And we eat everything, the blood, and like you said, and we don't throw anything, and we always have to ask the reindeer, like, and thank the reindeer before we slaughter the reindeer. So yeah, and we use the fur. We are sleeping on it when we are doing the spring migration or the autumn migration with the reindeer. So it's like you say, it's important to just take that much you need, not more.
In respect.
Yeah. But
Yes.
also the reindeer
Yes.
herding gives you the knowledge how to live and how to survive in the Arctic areas.
Yeah, you mentioned respect being very important in that relationship.
Respect
yeah.
for nature,
Yeah.
respect for the reindeer,
Mm.
the respect for the, yeah.
Yeah, and that's also something that I've seen a lot with the Sun peoples as well. When they go hunting and they've killed an animal, there's lots of rituals where they become one with the animal. They will exchange saliva, and there is paying huge respect. And the evening before they go hunting, they will do specific dances, and the hunters will start to embody. They will become the lion, they become the hunter. And it's all part of that kind of relationship, and they will even do shape-shifting that they actually do in their mind. They become physically the lion, and it's a beautiful process to see that relationship and how the animals there is a beautiful relationship happening in that hunt practice as well, and it's all done with care and respect, absolutely.
And that is something people have actually forgotten. When they go to the shop, they don't even know where the food is coming from and what they're eating.
Absolutely, yeah.
I have another comment on that too,
Sure.
as well. One very important, especially in the southernmost part where I come from, in Greenland, is they, you know, in a Western context, time is everything. You know, we use time effectively, but the way we also show respect for the animal that we just, you know, go out and hunt for, is to actually use a lot of time with the preparing. And, you know, in South Greenland we have a tradition of going out to the sea where we have small islands, and they, you know, we will spend a month there, and with the meat that we have caught, and with the blubber, seal blubber, and we will use like so many days just be with the meat, be with the, like, and respecting how what we get is we will use our time and energy with, and listen to you know, how the wind or even the weather is changing. It affects everything of what we eat, and also is part of the healing and thriving that we have in our communities is about that, how we make the food that we get. So it's very much important, is also the respect, is to actually use our time and space to be and prepare that in a respect.
Thank you. I think there was another question here in the middle.
Thank you. I feel very humble in front of your stories. I'm Taylor from Estonia. Lived in Lapland for a year, like almost Arctic Circle.
Where?
Rovaniemi.
Okay.
I studied there. What did I want to ask? Basically it's a very Western question, but you as Inuit and Samis, what are your kind of dreams to the Western society?
Do you want to start?
I mean, I don't know if I have any dreams for the Western society. I have a dream for our indigenous communities, that we get included and understood and as equal. We are not equal right now. We are not seen. I mean, even and that's another aspect. Not to say art is not important, but even our knowledge is seen more as art rather than actual knowledge and important knowledge and science knowledge. So I really hope that if I should say something for the Western ways of seeing us or understanding us, is to actually see us as equal and acknowledge our ways of doing and ways of knowing, and that would actually change a lot of things, even the system, and that we don't have to use care in everything, the words, but it's embodied, as you said also, Saskia, and the biology program itself is also learning the students to go out hunting with the hunters, so they know how they respect. So they will go out hunting for reindeer. They know how because one of the biggest issues that we have in Greenland is the misunderstandings that the biology scientist comes with, a different worldview, understanding of what is the right knowledge or amount, or how to, understand what we do is, it's as important as in Western ways of doing, and rather than having those separate, but really have that, that it's not knowledge is the Western ways of doing and knowing is not universal, So I think that's the most important, from my perspective.
I'm also agree. Thank you for that. But also I can add to that too, that I wish that the reindeer herding could survive, because right now I'm not so very positive. I think the reindeer herding will change, and if we do lose more land, then we have to stop quitting with the reindeer herding, and I'm afraid that then we're gonna lose even more of our culture, the language. I think for me, the reindeer and also the fishing with the seas, what the sea Samics do, the reindeers are holding the Sápmi together. We have Sápmi, in Russia, Sweden, Finland, Norway. And it is because of the reindeer husbandry, the lands, which are defining Sápmi, where the reindeer are. So, yeah.
Yeah, but maybe our hope for the Western world is that the Western world is curious and interested to learn, and just dive right into the thing. Listen to the people who live closest to Earth. We know that there is a lot of important information to find there. So just to listen to the people closest to Earth, because we are trying to understand Earth now. Things are not moving in the right direction. So that's that kind of respect for nature needs to be something that should be in the curriculum of every school all over the world, even in the steel towers. So it's, you're not connected to the world when you're sitting in a steel tower. So that's important to try to find those informations.
And also, it's a lot of racism happening, both in Sweden and Norway and so on. So I said to him, sometimes I'm afraid wearing my traditional gakti when I go outdoor. So I hope that my children doesn't have to feel that like I do. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. There was a question here in the middle, as well. Further down, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm always a little bit anxious about asking questions in public, so I hope it will be understandable. So I guess my question was, I was wondering about green energies projects being implemented or constructed on indigenous territories and reindeers herding territories as well, because I've heard a lot about legal cases from Samis against wind farms, for example. And I was also wondering this because when I was watching your movie, I wondered, are they going to, at some point, face an obstacle with, I don't know, like a wind farm or something that would not allow them to cross paths, maybe? And also I'm asking this question from like a French perspective, because we also have a lot of issues in the overseas territories where green energy projects are being constructed on indigenous territories as well. So I am also wondering about the synergies that we can do between our countries. Yeah, thank you very much.
Well, I would like to give the microphone to Britt. You said something very nice earlier today. You want?
As you said, you know, I think we are all worried about traditional knowledge. Traditional knowledge is connected to the land, and I couldn't agree more that, in a sense, you know, there is rock art in your area of reindeer, thousands and thousands and thousands of reindeer. So, and this rock art are like 8,000 years old. So in a sense, the reindeer has been the main protector of the land, and in a sense, given itself to the Sami. And we are facing this kind of green colonialism that Eva Fjellheim in particular, if you seek her up, she's writing about green colonialism and worked on very specific cases, the Fosen case and the Øyfjellet case. And in a sense, it's such a paradox that in this kind of green transition that we all support, should the Sami land be sacrificed for this green transition? You know, I think that this should be on the table also for the European Commission, and in a sense, in how they can engage in securing and protecting indigenous land, and by that, indigenous people, and by that, in a sense, indigenous knowledge that are highlighted as important for the future of us all. But if the land is not protected, you know, that's a catastrophe.
Vivi, you want to add maybe something to this, or?
Yeah, I mean, I agree on Britt, everything that she said. I think it's, if we try to take this in a policymaking perspective, I really think it's important to have the, you know, the nation states and the countries, and, you know, if they are to make, we have so many, even in Denmark, so many things that are green projects and so on. But I think the most important is not included most of the time is our, you know, we live on the land, we do everything, you know, and we have the knowledge, and the way we see the world is not included in those decision making. And most of the time the projects itself are led by non-indigenous, which is a huge problem itself. So I think if we have to have those, and I agree, we have to have those. We have to have this in a Western understanding, a green transition, even though that we always have been saying that we need to have that balance. And that's our, you know, our spiritual and stories has always told us to have the balance of not to take too much, not to take too, so it go over the balance is not keeping. So I think if we have to have like projects and the policy making, the politicians is at least, the very least, to have even especially in leadership, because in leadership they shape how we do things, and most of the time the indigenous projects are, you know, already shaped, and then they just take a box and have some indigenous, you know, participation, which is not enough to really change the way and things. So the leadership should be, you know, equal partners of indigenous involvement, at least, of how we could transition then, you know, and how we could do things. And that is also, in my understanding, would say, and we will not make windmills on the land because, you know, and that's the way we just, you know, yeah.
Thank you. I think we've got a question from the online community.
All right. So the question is about care. So if you could share some experiences of conversations or interactions with other humans for whom caring is not really something prominent in their worldviews and culture.
Difficult question.
It is.
I try to understand the question.
I need it translated.
Oh, you can.
But for instance, you know, you mentioned before aspects of racism and so on, and racism is obviously a manifestation of carelessness and, well, besides disrespect and everything else. But I don't know.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
I have a comment. You know, it's, so one of the things that I focus very much on is the narrative that come, especially Inuits in Greenland, is we have a very, and that's a typical view that we have from Denmark especially, is very deficit-based, like a lack of knowing, a lack of a lot of things because of intergenerational trauma because of the colonization. So this is a question that I don't really understand the question, but that's what my comment is everything is from I think we endure so much of not care in the system that it's a weird question for me, because we meet so much racism and not care in general. So I think it's important to focus also on what is our strength, what is our desire, to be as indigenous communities and promote work and projects that is building each other up instead of tearing us down. So, and yeah, that's just my comment. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and maybe I can just add, as a person who has been welcomed for 20 years in an indigenous community and I've been so lucky and privileged that I have been taken care of and I've been on that journey of learning how to be closer to nature and starting to think with my body and not just with my mind, and decolonize my mind and everything that I learned at university, and that was done with care and also with humor. I think there is always a great sense of humor as well. I think when I work in the community and how people are teaching me how to see the world differently and I've been, there's always been so much generosity of people's time and their willingness to educate me, and so much patience when I make mistakes. And so I've been very lucky and privileged that I've been taken care of and have experienced that what care actually means, and care for the land and care for the animals and other human beings. I think do you want to add something?
Yeah, what should laughter, like you said, laughter, music, arts. What would the world be like without that? What's the point then? Just surviving.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's really important.
I think it's not now time. It's very nice to hear like stories of non-indigenous experiencing care with in the indigenous society and community. But I think it's time to do the opposite now, that you take care of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That was my comment.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's yeah. There are allies, but we need much more coming together. Absolutely. Yeah. I think we may have time for one final question, if there is any more question from the audience. Otherwise, yes.
Thank you. Just on this last note that you made, I think is very powerful indeed. If I think about my relationship with indigenous knowledge for personal reasons, I think that what I heard most is not really us as Westerners taking care of you. It's more like leaving you in peace. So what I'm saying is that, one, if you relate to this, because I'm a big fan of the question of caring, but more as something that we have to relearn as a Western modes of knowledge somehow and living. And I'm always afraid that some terms then become a new way to just repeat exactly the same past pattern. So my question is really, do you really think, I mean, maybe you meant something when you were saying us caring of you that maybe I didn't get. Because my understanding from other sources, it would be more like, don't interfere. And caring sometimes might be a way of interfering. I don't know, where do you draw the line? Thanks.
But when you care, you leave people alone. Yeah, that's.
I don't think if I understood your question. You know, English is my third language.
So can caring become invasive?
Can caring
become invasive if?
Oh, no, not at all. Of course.
From a okay.
No. But I think I was just like commenting, like when you told the story, it's not about you personally, but it's about the people, like, because people have so little knowledge about us, and everywhere I go, I have to explain almost about everything, and then I get exhausted, you know. And you know how the system is now. The children is not learning about the Sami people and indigenous people. They often maybe learn more of the other indigenous people than their own indigenous people in school, in the system. And also, we have two like languages in Norway. It's Sami language and Norwegian, but we have to learn Norwegian, but they don't have to learn Sami. And I have been discussing this and speaking with other young Sami artists and people who are working in the culture field, that we are getting exhausted. Like we are going out to the world, meeting people, and we have to teach them, you know. That's what I meant about it's time for the Western people start to care, like to learn more. And also I hope that like in Norway, that children could learn more about the Samis in the school system.
Vivi, you want to add something as a final comment?
Yeah, I think that's why it's important to understand what is care, you know, what is So how do we understand care in our context of, I understand it as reciprocity, because when you give and you get what you know, and that balance a lot of things out, and you don't have to overthink everything. You just do and receive and you give, you know, and that's caring itself. And another thing I think is important is to decentralize Western. Everything revolves around Western ways and Western how they can, you know. Instead, the narrative, in my opinion, should be or could be more of how can they learn just basic positionality, the power. You know, racism is about power, and everything is about power. So, and because we are not equal, it creates this unequal. So you have to have some kind of word care instead of. We need to really, I think, in my opinion, they should learn about positionality and power relations and racism and really education about that, because that can give some kind of an insight of how to connect, you know, to us and how to not centralize themselves in every situation. And sometimes it's just not, just like Morten said, just don't take up the space all the time and just be silent. And that's one, you know, one of the things that I do is really try to be comfortable being silent and comfortable not being the person that is the most important in the room, but just, you know, take a step back and let us. Yeah. And then our community and our culture in Inuit is, we don't take up space. We are collective, you know, we do things very collectively, so we don't speak up as Western do. So it's a very different ways of approaching. So that's also like, when you know that, you also know that you don't take up the space as you should, because then you don't allow the people in that room just to be themselves as they are.
Thank you. Do you want to add something, or can I draw the session to a close? Yeah, okay. Time for lunch. I don't know what no, not lunch, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm going to hand over to Angela. She will explain the next processes. Thank you.